Welcome back. Uh, this is the lecture 2 of the lecture series on product design and development. And today we'll learn about uh, product development process. So let's start. Okay, so the first question is what is product development process? So by definition, a product development process is a sequence of steps or activities that an enterprise employs to conceive, design, and commercialize a product. And it is important to have a structured way of approaching the product design and development. And the product development process is about that structure actually. So naturally the question is, why do we need to follow this process? That someone from a management background will decide that this is the overarching process that you will be following, that individual team will be following in their own, and then of course as a whole various different teams will coordinate with each other in this pattern, in this way. And the reason for that is, first, one of the reason is quality assurance, because a development process specifies that the phases a development process specifies the phases of phases a development project will pass through and the checkpoints along the way. When these phases and checkpoints are chosen wisely, following development process is one way of assuring the quality of the resulting product. Other is coordination. A clearly articulated development process acts as a master plan that defines the role of each the players on the development team. This plan informs the member of the team when their contributions will be needed and with whom they will need to exchange information and materials. Now you might think these are sort of a bureaucracy and all this thing, but when the problems or the product is very complex, and just the product development is not just a part of invention or innovation, but there are a lot of other things like making it business success and all this thing. And all this is even making a simple toothbrush will become a complex problem from that start to finish actually. And in that case you need to have that structure. Many of us will think it as a bureaucracy, like that you do things and you put this in the paper and all this thing, and then it becomes a sort of a record, and then people can trace back all this thing and all this thing. But yeah, there is a good side of it and bad side of it, I guess. I will say that in some technology related business where maybe having too much this kind of a management structure is not important, in fact can be bad. But in generally, if you want to make a business in a very competitive market, you need to follow these structures actually. So other reason are planning. A development process includes milestones corresponding to the completion of each phase. The timing of these milestones anchors the schedule of the overall development project, because timing is important essence, because you are always in competition with your competitor in the market, so you need to have a deadline and all this thing. Management. A development process is a benchmark for assessing the performance of an ongoing development effort. By comparing the actual events to the established process, a manager can identify possible problem areas. Finally, improvement. The careful documentation and ongoing review on the organization's development process and its results may help to identify opportunity for improvement in future and in the current project also. Now, there are various ways you can see the product development process. One way will be the process. So first of all, to give you a very simple view or very simplistic view of how a typical product development process will look like. So you can see in the figure, it starts with something called planning, and then so we'll go into explaining these things one after another in later, but right now let's have a glimpse of things. So planning, and then concept development, and then system level design and detailed design, and then testing, refinement, and production ramp up. So these are more or less common structure, but I guess depending on the product and depending on the market and type of the product, these structures can be a little bit different and all this thing. So yeah, but more importantly, one can say the planning and concept development is part of a like it's in a sense, product development process is like narrowing down into something which will be a successful marketable product actually. So you can see in the figure also, it's like focusing onto something futuristic, not futuristic, but something which has a good potential to be successful. So when starting with the concept development and all things, so it will give you a lot of ideas and also, but you don't know which will be successful. And I mean, from the not just from the business, that's not the only thing, but even you need to have a, I mean, of course you need to have a great product and innovative product and all this thing, but in the end also but that's not the only thing. There are also other factors all comes into the play, and this lecture series is about that. It's not about, let's say, some specific scientific aspect or engineering aspect, but rather sort of a management, and as well as it's more of an interdisciplinary approach or knowledge that we are trying to gather here. So you can see here in the figure that there are a lot of stages of development, and now the point is also you can see or now you may have a lot of other questions, that what is product development process and all these things. So you can see product development process, one way of think about product development is an initial creation of wide set of alternative product concepts, and then the subsequent narrowing of alternatives and increasing specification of the product until the product can be reliably and repeatably produced by the production system. So you have to consider the cost of the making, and then of course the customer, whether they will like it, whether and then the competitors and what they are providing and all these things. So all this comes into the picture. Now another way to think about the development process of, product development process is an information processing system. The process begins with inputs such as corporate objective, strategic opportunities, available technologies, product platforms, and production systems. Various activities process the development information, formulating specifications, concept, and design details. Finally, third way to think about development process is as a risk management system. In the early phases of product development, various risks are identified and prioritized. As this process progresses, risks are reduced as the key uncertainties are eliminated and the functions of the products are validated. Now, depending on someone's background, one can see product development in various other ways. And I think from a management point of view, from scientific point of view, from an engineering point of view, you can think about idea and narrowing down that will be more suitable for you, or more easy to access or easy to think about it. But from an typical managerial point of view, it can be certainly about risk management, that you don't want to create a product which has very high risk of failing, or high risk of various other risks. So yeah. Now we will go into learning what these steps are, like starting with planning and then ending up with something called production ramp up. So these are important ideas. So the planning activity is often referred to as phase 0 because it precedes the project approval and launch of the actual product development process. And I think for scientist and engineering background people, this is important because they will mostly work in sort of this kind of environment, especially the scientist people, and of course there will be a lot of other group members, but this part of the product development process will be, the core group will be mostly scientists and core engineers sort of thing, yeah. And this is more chaotic because here there is no direction, so a lot of thing can be thought of, and of course the initial thing comes from the market analysis and all these things, so that is, let's say, is not by the core scientist people, but yeah, but then after that how things will go in this particular planning phase will depend on the scientist, and of course there will be other people coming in, but the core group will be scientists and engineers. This phase begins with opportunity identification guided by corporate strategy, as I said, market research and all this thing, and includes assessment of technology development, market objectives. The output of planning phase is the project mission statement, which specifies the target market for the product, business goals, key assumptions and constraints. So in upcoming lectures, maybe next week, or if not next week, next week, so we'll discuss the this topic in more detail. Yeah. Now, second step is concept development. So the concept development phase, that the needs of the target market are identified. So you know that what are your customers and what are their needs. Alternative product concepts are generated and evaluated, and one or more concepts are selected for further development and testing. So it's not like, so I mean, I will say that don't try to think this thing as like too much management thing and all this thing. I mean, if you are a scientist, if you are a academic researcher, you can think of this as a initial stage of your project, like where you, I mean, you have certain goal or certain idea that, this is what I want to do, or this is the method I want to develop, or this is the experimental technique I'm thinking maybe it will work on, something like that. But in those initial stages, I mean, a lot of things are basically very uncertain, and you might not know after 1 year or after 6 months how your project will look like. So it's more of a serendipity and all these things. So think about the concept development and the planning and concept development like that, where you have a lot of ideas, you generate a lot of ideas, and yeah, so only difference is that here the priorities and can be different actually, so, and maybe more complex here. In case of academic research, I mean, most of the research is basically, I mean, let's be honest, it's not about the facility development or some sort of innovative invention or something like that. Most of the time we are more interested in how we can get published, in a good journal or something like that. And that is kind of an I mean, true. I mean, let's accept that. I mean, of course there are big groups where they have bigger goals and all this thing, and sometimes they have other priorities, but certainly for academic people's having papers are important, and good papers specifically in good journals, so that those are priorities. But here it's not. I mean, of course in the company and some sort of this kind of environment, those are certainly not priority here. I mean, if not paper, but certainly I think maybe IP development and IP generation will be a priority, and then of course respecting the deadlines, these are also priorities and all these things. So concept development phase, that needs of the target market are identified, alternative product concepts are generated and evaluated, one or more concepts are selected for further development testing. A concept is a description of the form, function and features of a product, and is usually accompanied by a set of specifications, an analysis of competitive product, and an economic justification of the product. So in upcoming lectures we'll will dedicate more into these concept, like planning, concept development, and all this thing. Then comes system level design. Now here we are basically narrowing down more, and system level design phase includes the definition of the product architecture, decomposition of the product into subsystems and components. One might think that these are it depends on the product. Actually, if it is very complex, then it needs a lot of different division of subsystems, and then even each subsystem can be divided more and all this thing. And even there can be team which will be dedicated on interaction between various subsystems, that how they interact with each other and whether we are able to predict it, and where the interaction, and those interaction can be of, I'm using the term interaction as a generic word, but it can be electronic, it can be mechanical, it can be data based, various things. It depends on the product actually. For example, one can give as an example that let's say Boeing airplane, there that it has huge number of parts, and then maybe the wings been outsourced from different company, but then of course certain the main bodies ordered from, or maybe they are developing by themselves. Then how it get mechanically how these two systems mechanically interact with each other, these will be very important, aerodynamics and all these things. So I'm just giving an example. These examples may can be very funny for you, because if you are, let's say, on working on those particular domain in a detailed way, but I'm not really working in these fields, but I can give you this simple example. You can comprehend that, depending on the product, the system design and division and their subdivision on all this thing can be very complex. Preliminary design of key component, allocation of detailed design responsibility to both internal and external resources. These are part of the system design. Initial plan for the production system and final assembly are usually defined during this phase as well. The output of this phase usually includes the geometric layout of the product, a functional specification of each of these product subsystems, and a preliminary process flow diagram for the final assembly process. Still, we haven't reached the production, of course, because it's more like you can think of this as a prototype development, and then it will be tested and all this thing, and then we'll go into the factory level production, mass level production. Now, next step is detailed design. The detailed design phase includes the complete specification of the geometry, materials, tolerances of all the unique parts in the product, and the identification of all the standard parts to be purchased from the suppliers. A process plan is established and tooling is designed for each part to be fabricated within the production system. The output of this phase is the control documentation of the product, the drawing or computer files describing the geometry of each part of and its production tooling, the specification of the purchased part, and the process plans for the fabrication and the assembly of the product. Three critical issues that are best considered throughout the product development process but are finalized in the detailed design phase are material selection, production cost, and robust performance. So you can see gradually we are getting narrower, as well as we are more now concerned about various detail and all this thing. So it's a very intensive the whole product development process is a very multidisciplinary, there will be a lot of group of people from different background, and then of course you need executive officers, they will be responsible for taking decision, and they will be more about managing thing and seeing from a different as a whole point of view, what is happening and in each team, and how those are important, and what areas to push and all this thing. Next is testing and refinement. Testing and refinement phase involves construction and evaluation of multiple pre-production version of the product, Early or something called alpha prototypes are usually built with production intent parts with same geometry and material properties as intended for the production version of the product, but not necessarily fabricated with the actual processes to be used in the production. So I mean, we know that alpha prototype and all these things, these are, I mean, in software also we use this term, like, you know, alpha version and all this thing. So alpha prototypes are tested to determine whether the product will to work as designed and whether the product satisfy the key customer needs. And then later beta prototypes are usually built with parts supplied by the intended production processes but may not be assembled during the intended using the intended final assembly process. Beta prototypes are extensively evaluated internally and are also typically tested by customers in their own use environment. The goal for the beta prototypes is usually to answer questions about performance and reliability to identify necessary engineering changes for the final product. So we'll go into this thing one after another in upcoming lectures, not exactly the next lecture, but yeah, I mean, we'll cover all this thing in detail in upcoming lectures. Finally, the last phase is production ramp up, and I think all these phases are, I mean, it depends on who you are actually. I mean, for scientists and engineering people, these are not, I mean, specifically the basic science and I mean, you know, those core group people, they will be, they are till this, I mean, till the last phase, their task will be done actually as a I mean, from the group point of view. So in the production ramp up phase, the product is made using the intended production system. The purpose of the ramp up is to train the workforce and to work out any remaining problems in the production processes. Products produced during production ramp ups are sometimes supplied to preferred customers and are carefully evaluated to identify any remaining flaws. The transition from the production ramp ups to ongoing production is usually gradual. At some points in this transition, the product is launched and becomes available for the widespread distribution. So it's not like that at certain time it is completed and then there is no development. So sometimes the development can happen with even after the first distribution, like, you know, first I mean, even after customers started buying it, in the next phase they will make changes, so that can happen. Here you can see a figure which describes these processes, you know, or I mean the steps in more detail, and it is divided into I mean various tasks, like I mean, from the planning is basically you can say it is a zeroth phase, so it's more very erotic and it's erratic and random and all these things. So but from concept development, um, things can be structured, I will say, and concept development can be lot of thing, and but the task more or less can be divided into marketing, design and manufacturing. Design basically contains the group of people which are basically science or engineering background, and then of course marketing separate group, and manufacturing mainly engineering guys. So, and you can see in each phase basically there will be task for this marketing, there will be task for design, and there will be task for manufacturing. But as we can see, marketing guys will be on the board throughout. I mean, from they will have a bigger role initially, and in between when the design and all this thing happening, uh, I will say their task will be more of a not direct, but rather they will be planning for, you know, the marketing and all these things. So it is like they are not in the direct development of things, but rather they are preparing stage for whatever will be made by the engineers and team. And design certainly design people, that means the scientist and engineer, their work are basically intensive till the production phase, and then of course, I mean, I will say that in the testing and refinement, and specifically in maybe to some extent detailed design and all these things, the core group of people will be different. But initially in the first two stage, concept development and system level design, there will be different group maybe will be there, and maybe there will be overlap also, group of people I'm talking about. And of course in the end stage, production ramp up, then I think there will be dedicated engineers and all this thing, they will be in that design phase. I mean, they will perform the design related or I mean design related responsibilities. So by design, basically it's very more of a generic word. I mean, that's the word the book that I'm taking, I mean referring are using, but I will rather say design and development, something like that, or R&D sort of thing. But anyway, and as you can see, manufacturing basically throughout they have some role. Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, so so I think manufacturing is more like a extension of design and development in terms of like considering finance and management. There is also management here, doing market analysis, like so generally it's not like you are developing product is not like every part of it is not built it from scratch. So it's not like everything is from the mines that they are drawing, I mean extracting the iron or something like that, gold, and everything is built it by from scratch. It's not like that. Rather, any product development by any company or any private or public corporation is basically is like a shopping where, yeah, so basically you are actually it's like a black box where you are inputting some parts, and output is a product which is of better value than the sum of those cost of those components actually. And I mean, one can think about this in various different ways, but that is one way of thinking. And that the value that we are generating in the black box, that comes from various origin. Of course, this stage is made by the marketing and all these people who will be in a they are responsible to make sure that what the design what the idea is will be successful in the market. But then the creation of the set of ideas which will be picked by the marketing people, that is basically done by the engineers and scientists and innovators, by entrepreneurs, or a lot of people. And they are creating the value actually, and that is how things, the valorization cycle works actually. Yeah. And there, of course, there's other functions like research, demonstrate available technologies, finance, provide planning goals, general management, allocate project resources, yeah, so various other things. So for today's video, we'll focus more about concept development, or let's say planning also. Like planning is more always you can think of as a zero phase of product development process, and as I said, planning is more complex and can be more complex actually, and yeah, so and not so easy to bring down into the managerial framework. So but let's talk about concept development and what are the various phases of it. Because the concept development phase of the development process demands perhaps more coordination among functions than any other. Many of the integrative development methods presented in this video or in this lecture series are concentrated here actually. So in this section, or I mean in this slide, we expand the concept development phase into what we call the front end process. So Yeah, so that is one different way of looking at it. uh, so rarely does the entire process proceed in a purely sequential fashion. So here you can see the figure here, and start with the mission statement, and then of course and then it gives you a development plan actually. And so it starts with identifying customer needs and established target specification, generate product concept, sales product concept, test product concept, and set final specification, and plan downstream and development. And each step can be, in each step there will be some issue which will need force you to go back in the previous step and redo the exercise and all this thing. And each step there will be generic task of perform some economic analysis, some benchmark competition, competitive product, like what are the competitive tentative competitive product which are available in the market already, built and test model and prototype. Though that's also basically part which will come later. So I will say so let's see this thing how. So the concept development process includes the following activities. So first is identifying customer needs. So the goal of this activity is to understand customers' need and to effectively communicate them to the development team. The output of this step is a set of carefully constructed customer needs statements organized in a hierarchical list with importance weighting for many or all the needs. Special attention is paid to the identification of latent needs which are difficult for customers to articulate and unaddressed by existing product. A method for this activity is presented in upcoming video. Identifying so I think in this context one can always I think Steve Jobs said that you always need to so you can't expect that the customers will say that this is what you need. So you need to understand what customer will need in the future. So and same thing goes for various other domains also, even in the high technology aspect. For example, in our case actually, I'm not thinking about myself or not putting myself into that framework, but yeah, there are people in my field who are very successful in making companies and doing job in academia and as well as in company, and they talk about this thing that because we developed medical scanners, so they have, and the end users are actually the doctors, and they always talk about this specific thing that it's not actually the doctors who will tell that this is what we need or this is what we need in the future or something like that. They can give you some generic idea that okay, so if this thing can be improved then that's better and all this thing. But then from our point of view, the new product idea or new scanner idea or new type of investigation, not investigation but new type of technology for diagnosis of certain new disease and all this thing, that will come from more of a technical background, because they know the tools, they know, and because it is very difficult from the doctor's point of view to pinpoint that I read somewhere in school that this is something happen in physics, and why don't you just bring this thing and test this thing and all this thing. That will never going to happen actually. So that's why it is very difficult that they will say things. They have some generic requirement that this is this, but the innovation, the big innovation always comes from the core group actually. That's what I'm trying to say, and I think that is a very general truth in any field actually. And it is here also they are saying that whatever may be the product, but then just from the customers survey, you can't just pinpoint anything. You need to understand the latent need also. Now Next thing is establishing target specification. Specifications provide a precise description of what a product has to do. They are translation of the customer needs into the technical term. Targets for specifications are set early in the process and represent the hopes of the development team. Later, these specifications are refined to be consistent with constraint imposed by the team's choice of a product concept. The output of this stage is a list of target specifications. Each specification consists a metric and marginal and ideal values for that metric. A method for the specification activity. So that's all about the establishing target specifications. These are more generic term, and I think depending on the product, these can be, differences can be cannot be there. You can't impose these, have these differences of identifying customer needs. And you can of course think about target specification, but what I'm trying to say is that depending on the product, actually a lot of steps can be mixed together. That's what I'm trying to say. Next step is concept generation. The goal of concept generation is to thoroughly explore the space of product concepts that may address the customer needs. Concept generation includes a mix of external search, creative problem solving within the team, and the systemic exploration of the various solution fragments the team generates. The result of this activity is usually a set of 10 to 20 concepts, each typically represented by a sketch and brief descriptive text. Next thing is concept selection. Concept selection is the activity in which various product concepts are analyzed and sequentially eliminated to identify the most promising concept. The process usually requires several iterations and may initiate additional concept generation and refinement. Concept testing. One or more concepts are then tested to verify that the customer needs have been met, assess the market potential of the product, and identify any shortcomings that must be remedied during further development. If the customer response is poor, the development project may be terminated or some earlier activity may be repeated as necessary. Next is setting final specification. The target specifications set earlier in the process are revisited after a concept have been selected and tested. At this point, the team must commit to specific values of the matrices reflecting the constraint inherent in the product concept, limitations identified through technical modeling, and trade-offs between cost and performance. Next is project planning. In this final activity of the concept development, the team creates a detailed development schedule, devises a strategy to minimize development time, and identifies the resources required to complete the project. The major results of the front-end activities can be usually so that's more of, let's see, the project planning and economic analysis. The team often with support of financial analysis and builds the economic model of the new product. This model is used to justify continuation of the overall development program and to resolve specific trade-off between, for example, development cost and manufacturing cost. So in the last video we discussed about that development and manufacturing cost. These can be almost same, and it can be very surprising, but the development can be very costly also, because it may take time and it may take a large amount of talent, and that means you need to hire a lot of people. So benchmarking competitive product and modeling, so that's also important, and modeling and prototyping is the last stage. And then so that's all about concept development in detail. Now we will discuss about the type of products, or the generic division of type of product, and then depending on that how the product development process can be different. So the first example one can think of of a type of product will be something called market pull products. So and that for that generic process that we discuss, the planning and then concept planning, concept development, and etc., those can be followed in a straightforward way. So the generic process is most like the process used in market pull situation. A firm begins product development with a market opportunity and then uses whatever available technologies are required to satisfy market needs. So that means basically market pulls the development decision. So that's what it is. And so so that's the difference actually, and you'll see in the next examples of various kind of category of products, there the decision making mechanism or the priorities are different actually. And as I said that in market pull situation, basically you need to respond to the market, and you need to respect the time and competition and all this thing. And in that case it's more or less shopping around various the core technology that can be incorporated into the product and all this thing. And I think the price also is important, but I think time is more important there, because you have to catch you need to ride the wave, or let's just say that's the point. Now next example is so the reason of giving this generic classification of products, because depending on that you will realize naturally that why the product development process should be different, or at least even in the generic framework you are given, you need to reassemble those things in different way. So the second example is called technology push product. In developing technology push product, the firm begins with a new proprietary technology and looks for an appropriate market in which to apply this technology. That is, the technology pushes the development. For example, the one example is Gore-Tex, an expanded Teflon sheet manufactured by W.L. Gore Associates, is a striking example of technology push. The company has developed dozens of products incorporating Gore-Tex, including artificial veins for vascular surgery, insulation for high performance electric cables, fabrics for outerwear, dental floss, and liner for big pipe bags. Many successful technology push products involve basic materials or basic process technologies. This may be because basic materials and processes are deployed in thousands of applications, and there is therefore a high likelihood that new and unusual characteristics of materials and processes can be matched with an appropriate application. Technology push process begins with the planning phase, in which that given technology is matched with a market opportunity. Once this matching has occurred, the remainder of the generic development process can be followed. The team includes an assumption in the mission statement that the particular technology will be embodied in the product concepts considered by the team. Although many extremely successful products have arisen from the technology push development, this approach can be perilous. The product is unlikely to succeed unless the assumed technology offers clear competitive advantage in meeting customer needs. Suitable alternative technologies are unavailable or very difficult for competitor to utilize. Project risk can possibly be minimized by simultaneously considering the merit of the broader set of concepts that do not necessarily incorporate the new technology. So you can see the pitfall, and but when you see that certain generic material or certain way of doing thing is very successful in certain things, so the management is always very much interested into seeing that whether this can be used into something other, and it can be, the product can be totally different actually. So as you can see in the example also. Now next example that is platform product. A platform product is built around a pre-existing technological subsystem, a technology platform. That's why it's called technology platform or platform product. Examples of such platform include the Intel chipset in a personal computer, the Apple iPhone operating system, and blade design in Gillette razor. Huge investments are made in developing such platforms, and therefore every attempt is made to incorporate them into several different products. In some sense, platform products are very similar to technology push product in that the team begins the development effort with an assumption that the product concept will embody a particular technology. One difference is that a technology platform has already demonstrated its usefulness in the marketplace in meeting customer needs. Fourth example of another product type is process intensive product. Examples of process intensive product include semiconductors, foods, chemicals, and papers. For these products, the production process places strict constraint on the properties of the product so that the product design cannot be separated even at the concept phase from the production process design. In many cases, process intensive products are produced in very high volumes or bulk as opposed to discrete and goods. So here there is no talk about like shopping around various raw material and then you do things, or creative valorization or black box of value, and you just fed your raw material and you have a product or something like that. For example, certainly food is, because here food is very much in, and semiconductor is, here you can see that that the examples are quite distant apart. Like one end we have food and one end we have semiconductor and other thing. So but then they are in the boundary in the same set, in a sense that it's basically process intensive product. So because you need to build from the scratch. So for food, because I think for semiconductor is very much true, because it need to have a certain very efficient quality or properties so that it can be used as making maybe transistor and etc. Food has to be taste wise good and nutrition wise good. Chemical has to be effective in building or having a further chemical process so that it can be used into certain other things. So so here actually the research and R&D, the core development happens in the early stage, I will say. Okay, so the next type of product is customized product. Example of customized product includes switches, motors, batteries, and container. Customized products are slight variations of standard configurations and are typically developed in response to a specific order by customer. Development of customized product consists primarily of setting values of design variables such as physical dimension and materials. So it's very simple. It's more of a backstage thing, because already you have proven your success of the product. Now you are meeting to the various customized segment of the market that okay, so I want this kind of thing in this dimension, etc. Now high risk product, there is a type of product which can be categorized as high risk. The product development process address many type of risk. This include technical risk, will the product function properly, market risk, will customers like what the team develop, and budget and schedule risk, can the team complete the project on time and with budget. High risk products are those that entail unusually large uncertainty related to the technology or market, so that there is a substantial technical or market risk. The generic product development process is modified in high risk situation by taking steps to address the largest risk in early stages of product development. These usually require completing some design and test activity earlier in the process. Next is quick build product. For the development of some products such as software and many electronic products, building and testing prototype models is such a rapid process that the design build test cycle can be repeated many times. In fact, teams can take advantage of rapid iteration to achieve a more flexible and responsive product development process, sometimes called spiral product development process. Following concept development in this process, this system level design phase entails decomposition of product into high, medium and low priority feature. This is followed by several cycles of design, build, integrate and test activities, beginning with the highest priority item. When time and budget runs out, usually all of the high and medium priority features have been incorporated into the evolving product, and the low priority feature may be omitted until the next product generation. So that is quick build product, and yeah, I hope I can give you an example, but yeah, this is just a generic explanation, I will say, and I don't know too much about the example. So anyway, next is product service system. Example of product service system are automobile, retails and restaurants and mobile communication. Services are largely developed using the standard product development method described will be described in upcoming videos. However, because customers are so intimately involved in the service delivery process, service design team pay careful attention to the range of customer needs and the timing of key touch points in the creating of the service experience. So this is maybe not important or maybe not interesting for us, like from science background people, but I think for a make a product successful, you need to have that product back-end service, or even after selling the product you need to have a certain amount of service. For example, in our case, not our, but I mean in our field, there are like companies, they do, after selling the scanner, they do have the service where that the customer want to do something with the scanner in a little bit in different way. They want to do experimental things, so how we can help them. So those kind of those aspects are basically can be seen as the product service system. Finally, complex system. Large scale products such as automobile and airplanes are complex systems comprising many interacting subsystems and components. When developing complex system, modifications to the generic product development process address a number of system level issues. The concept development phase considered the architecture and the entire system, and multiple architecture may be considered as competing concepts for overall system. The system level design phase becomes critical. During this phase, the system is decomposed into subsystems and this further into many components. Teams are assigned to develop each component. Additional teams are assigned and special challenge of integrating component into subsystems and these into the overall system. So this is a special case, and you can see here you need to have like team dedicated on focusing on the integration of two subsystem or even whole system, how it get integrated and all these things. So these are more or less the category of classification of product, depending on which the structure of the product development process can be very much different. Finally, again, this is the reference. That means this is the book I'm using for making this video, and of course, as you can understand that in various part of the video I'm just reading from the book, and yeah, this is freely available from this web link. So yeah, so that's it for this week, and see you in the next week. Bye bye.